David Reeves watched the elaborate crystal sculptures floating in the reception hall and wished he was back home with his dog. The diplomatic gathering had been going on for 3 hours now, and his feet hurt from standing in formal shoes. Around him, delegates from 40 different species mingled and talked about their homeworlds, their cultures, their families. He stood near a refreshment table, trying to look interested while a tall, graceful alien named Vreen explained the educational system on Talon 4. She had pale blue skin and moved like a dancer, her long fingers gesturing as she spoke. Several other delegates had gathered around to listen. "And what about Earth?" Vreen asked, turning her large eyes toward David. "What do you miss most about your homeworld, human?" David smiled, grateful for the question. "Honestly, I miss my pets. I have a dog named Cooper and a cat named Mittens. They're staying with my sister while I'm here on the station." The reaction was immediate and shocking. Vreen stepped back as if he had slapped her. The other delegates made various sounds of distress. An insectoid creature named Murren clicked, his mandibles rapidly, which David had learned meant discomfort. "You keep predators in your dwelling?" Vreen asked, her voice rising. "Voluntarily?" David blinked, confused by the sudden tension. "Well, yes, they're pets, companion animals. Most humans have them." "Most humans?" A delegate from the water world of Aquan rippled with visible disgust. "You mean this is common practice?" "Very common," David said slowly, realizing he had stepped into something he did not understand. Dogs and cats have lived with humans for thousands of years. They're domesticated. They're family. Vreen made a sound like wind through leaves, which David recognized as Telonian laughter. But there was no warmth in it. "Family. You call predators family. This explains so much about your species." Other delegates were gathering now, drawn by the commotion. David felt his face getting hot. Ambassador Patricia Holden, his superior, noticed the crowd and made her way over. "Dogs are pack hunters," Vreen continued, addressing the growing audience. "Cats are solitary killers. Both are designed to hunt, to kill, to eat flesh, and humans bring them into their homes. Let them near their young." "They're not dangerous," David protested. "Not to us. They're trained, loved, cared for. They love us back." Love. Vreen's tone made the word sound ridiculous. A predator cannot love. It can only pretend, only wait for the moment of weakness. Murren clicked forward. Unlike Vreen, he seemed more curious than disgusted. "On my world, we keep small herbivores as companions, creatures that eat plants that pose no threat. This is the norm across most civilized species. Why would humans choose differently?" Ambassador Holden arrived, placing a gentle hand on David's shoulder. "Because humans understand predators," she said calmly. "We evolved alongside them. We are in many ways predators ourselves." The crowd reacted as if she had announced a plague. Several delegates actually moved away. "This is what concerns the Council," Vreen said, her voice carrying across the hall. "Humans come from a death world. They are comfortable with violence, with danger. They cannot distinguish between appropriate and inappropriate relationships. This calls into question their judgment on all matters." "That's not fair," David said, anger replacing embarrassment now. "Having pets doesn't make us violent or unstable. It makes us compassionate. We can form bonds across species lines even with creatures that are different from us. Or it makes you reckless," Vreen countered, unable to recognize real threats. "Tell me, human, what other dangerous creatures do your people keep? Do you also befriend venomous serpents? Massive crushing reptiles? Where does this madness end?" "Some people do keep snakes and reptiles, yes," David admitted. "With proper care and knowledge, many animals that seem dangerous can be safe companions." The hall erupted in shocked murmurs. Vreen turned to the other delegates with an expression of vindication. "You see? This is the species we are allowing full council privileges. A species that cannot tell the difference between a pet and a threat." Ambassador Holden's jaw tightened. "Counselor Vreen, I must protest this characterization. Human beings have never posed a threat to any council species. Our relationships with Earth animals are based on thousands of years of successful cohabitation and mutual benefit. Successful because you are predators yourselves, Vreen shot back. You speak their language. But what happens when you encounter something truly dangerous? Will your predator sympathy cloud your judgment? Will you try to befriend something? That should be eliminated? We would try to understand it first, David said quietly. Yes. Vreen looked at him with something like pity. Then you are fools, and dangerous fools at that. She turned to address the wider crowd. I will be filing a formal complaint with the Council. Humans should not be granted the same status as species with proper survival instincts. Their psychological profile suggests instability and poor threat assessment. Before Ambassador Holden could respond, a piercing alarm cut through the hall. Red lights began flashing along the walls. A synthesized voice echoed from hidden speakers in multiple languages. Security alert. All delegates remain in current locations. Security breach in lower residential sections. Repeat. Security breach in lower sections. The crowd moved toward the windows overlooking the station's central column. David followed, his heart pounding. Far below, through the transparent walls of the connecting corridors, he could see security teams running. Emergency barriers were sliding into place. What escaped? Someone asked. A security officer entered the hall, his uniform marking him as Talonian. He spoke directly to Vreen. Counselor, we have a situation. A creature was accidentally transported in unmarked cargo. It woke during transit and breached containment. Initial teams are attempting to corner it now. What kind of creature? Vreen demanded. The officer's skin paled to almost white. A Miridon, Counselor. From the quarantine world. The hall went silent. Even David knew what that meant. Miridons were apex predators from a world so dangerous that the Council had forbidden all travel there. How one had gotten onto the station was a mystery for later. Right now, something very deadly was loose among families and children, and the people in charge of stopping it had just spent an hour explaining why they thought loving predators was insane. The security feeds showed chaos. David stood with the other delegates, watching multiple screens as teams from various species tried to contain the Miridon. The creature was the size of a large wolf but built lower to the ground, with 6 powerful legs and a thick armored hide that seemed to absorb the stun blasts being fired at it. Why are they not using lethal force? Vreen demanded, watching as another security team retreated from a corridor. There are civilians nearby, the Talonian officer explained. We risk hitting them. The creature is moving too quickly. On the screen, the Miridon cornered a family trying to reach a safe room. The father, a being from Aquan, tried to shield his children. The creature lunged forward, then stopped, making a sound like metal scraping stone. It was not attacking. It was warning them away from its path. David leaned closer to the screen. It's scared. It is a predator, Vreen snapped. It is hunting. No. David shook his head, studying the creature's body language. His years working with animals on Earth kicked in automatically. Look at its posture. The way it moves. It's defensive, not aggressive. Something woke it up before it was supposed to. It's confused and frightened. Frightened predators are still deadly, Murren observed, though his tone was less dismissive than Vreen's. Agreed, David said. But if you treat it like a hunter, you make it more dangerous. You corner it, scare it more, force it to fight. And what would you suggest, human? Vreen asked coldly. Should we bring it a bowl of food and ask it to calm down? David bit back a sharp reply. On the screen, the Miridon was moving again, heading deeper into the residential areas. Security teams tried to set up barriers, but the creature was too quick, too smart. It found gaps, side passages, maintenance tunnels. Captain Owen Grant, the human security chief, entered the command center. He nodded to Ambassador Holden, then studied the screens. Let me take my team down there. Absolutely not, Vreen said immediately. Your species has already demonstrated poor judgment regarding predators. We cannot risk you sympathizing with this creature and allowing it to harm more civilians. We would not, Grant started. Your assistant just called it scared, Vreen interrupted, gesturing at David. As if that matters. As if we should consider its feelings while it terrorizes families. This is exactly the problem. Humans cannot be objective about predators. Ambassador Holden stepped forward. Counselor, with respect, Captain Grant has decades of security experience. His team is trained for exactly this type of situation. Then they can remain in their quarters and await orders. Vreen said flatly, I am invoking Council emergency protocols. As senior delegate present, I am assuming command of this situation. All human security personnel are to stand down immediately. Grant's face went red, but he was too professional to argue in front of the other delegates. He saluted stiffly and left. David felt anger burning in his chest. On the screens, the Miridon was approaching the main residential dome. Inside were hundreds of civilians, including the station's school. Emergency doors were closing, but not fast enough. The creature slipped through a gap with seconds to spare. Now it is trapped with our children, someone whispered. Set up the kill zone, Vreen ordered. All exits sealed. Lethal force authorized. We end this now. David watched the security teams moving into position. They were setting up heavy weapons at every exit from the dome. When the Miridon tried to leave, they would cut it down. The problem was that the creature was smart enough to know it was trapped. Trapped predators did not go quietly. He pulled out his personal communicator and stepped away from the group. Ambassador Holden noticed but did not stop him. He sent a message to a contact off station, someone he had not spoken to in weeks. Emergency situation. Need you here. Bring Riley. The response came back quickly. 3 hours out. Hold tight, 3 hours. David looked at the screens. In 3 hours, that creature would be dead, or people would be hurt, or both. He thought about Cooper, his dog, back home. Cooper had been a rescue, found half-starved and aggressive in an alley. Everyone said he was too far gone, too dangerous. David had spent 6 months earning his trust. Now Cooper slept on his bed and played with neighborhood children. The Miridon was not Cooper, but the principle was the same. Scared, hurt, confused animals needed patience, not violence. I'm going down there, David announced. The command center went quiet. Vreen turned to stare at him. Excuse me? I'm going to the residential dome. I can calm it down. You are insane, Vreen said flatly. Even for a human, this is madness. Maybe, David agreed. But your way is going to get people killed. Mine might not. I forbid it, David looked at Ambassador Holden. She studied his face for a long moment, then gave the smallest nod. Permission granted. You are not security, Vreen protested. You have no authority to enter a crisis zone. Then stop me, David said simply. He walked out of the command center before anyone could physically restrain him. His hands were shaking, but his mind was clear. He stopped by the supply area and grabbed what he needed. Food packets, a thermal blanket, a medical scanner. No weapons. Weapons would make this worse. Grant met him at the elevator to the lower levels. Ambassador told me what you are doing. I think you are crazy. But I respect it. He handed David a communicator. Stay in contact. If things go wrong, my team will extract you, council orders or not. Thank you, David said sincerely. The elevator descended. Through the transparent walls, David could see the residential dome below. Somewhere inside was a frightened creature from a death world, surrounded by people who wanted it dead. He understood exactly how it felt. The elevator doors opened onto chaos. The residential dome had been evacuated except for one family trapped in their quarters and the security teams positioned at every exit. David could hear the Miridon before he saw it, that metallic scraping sound echoing through the empty corridors. He followed the sound, moving slowly and deliberately. His communicator crackled. David, this is Grant. Security reports you are approaching the creature's last known position. Confirm you have a stun weapon. Negative, David replied quietly. No weapons, a pause. Then Grant's voice tight with worry. Copy that. God help you. David found the Miridon in a cargo bay that opened into the main corridor. The creature had backed itself into a corner, its 6 legs spread wide, its armored head low to the ground. Blood dripped from several wounds along its side where stun blasts had burned through gaps in its armor. At the far end of the bay, security personnel had weapons trained on the creature waiting for a clear shot. When David walked into the open space between them, several people shouted, Get out of there! A Talonian officer waved frantically. You are in the kill zone! David ignored him. He kept his eyes on the Miridon, watching its body language. The creature saw him and made that scraping sound again, louder this time. A warning. David sat down on the floor, 20 feet from the creature, and placed his supplies beside him. What are you doing? The voice came through his communicator now. Vreen speaking from the command center. Move out of the way immediately. David turned off his communicator. He opened a food packet, the smell of raw protein filling the air. The Miridon's head lifted slightly, its multiple eyes focusing on the food. David slid the packet across the floor halfway between them. I know you are hungry, David said, keeping his voice low and calm. I know you are hurt. I know you did not ask to be here. The creature did not move. David could see its flanks heaving, breathing hard, exhausted and in pain. My name is David, he continued, talking to fill the silence. I work here on the station. Not very exciting work, mostly paperwork and meetings. I miss home. I miss my dog Cooper. He is brown and white, very friendly. Loves everyone he meets. My cat Mittens is more reserved. She takes time to trust people. The Miridon watched him. David could see intelligence in those eyes, could see it processing the situation. No weapons. No aggressive posture. Food offered. A creature talking in soothing tones. You remind me of a wolf I met once, David said. Back on Earth. She had been trapped in a research facility, treated badly. When she was rescued, she did not trust anyone. Took months before she let anyone near her. But eventually, she learned that not all humans were cruel. Some of us actually care. The Miridon took one cautious step forward, then another. It approached the food packet, never taking its eyes off David. When it reached the food, it sniffed carefully, then ate in quick, desperate bites. David waited until it finished. Then he slowly reached for the thermal blanket. The Miridon tensed, but David just unfolded the blanket and laid it on the floor beside him. You are cold, he observed. Station temperature is too low for a creature from a hot world. This will help. The Miridon stared at the blanket, then at David. Several long minutes passed. David sat perfectly still, barely breathing. Finally, the creature moved closer, drawn by the promise of warmth. It lay down 6 feet away from David, its head resting on its front legs, eyes still watching. David picked up the medical scanner. I need to check your wounds. They look infected, may I? Of course it could not understand his words. But tone mattered. Intent mattered. David moved slowly, extending the scanner toward the creature. The Miridon growled, that scraping sound vibrating through the floor. David stopped. I know you have been hurt by people with devices, but this will help. I promise. He held the scanner in his open palm, letting the creature see it. Then he very slowly moved closer. 1 foot, 2 feet. The Miridon could kill him easily at this range. One snap of those powerful jaws could end everything. David brought the scanner close to the wounds. The Miridon flinched but did not attack. David ran the scanner along its side, checking the damage. Burned some deep. Infection starting in 2 of them, but treatable. You were being transported to a research facility, David said softly, reading the data. They sedated you, but not enough. Wrong dosage for your metabolism. You woke up scared in a strange place. You just wanted to get away. He looked into the creature's eyes. You are not a monster. You are just scared. His communicator, still off, suddenly burst to life anyway, Vreen's voice overriding the shutdown. David Reeves, you will move away from that creature now, or we will fire regardless of your position. David turned his communicator back on. If you fire, you will kill me along with the Miridon. Is that acceptable to the council? Silence, then Ambassador Holden's voice. Stand down, counselor. Look at the feeds. The creature is not attacking. David's method is working. For how long? Vreen demanded. Until the creature gets hungry again? Until it remembers what it is? It knows what it is, David said, still sitting beside the Miridon. It is a living being that was hurt and scared. Just like any of us would be. He looked at the security teams. I need a medical team here. This creature needs treatment. You cannot be serious, Vreen's voice rose. You want us to treat it? To help it? Yes, David said simply. Because it is the right thing to do. And because this creature was not transported here by accident, someone brought it illegally. This Miridon is evidence. Kill it, and you lose any chance of tracking down the smugglers. That argument at least made sense to them. After several minutes of debate, a medical team cautiously approached. David stayed with the Miridon through the entire examination, his hand resting lightly on its armored head. The creature allowed the treatment, too tired and hurting to resist anymore. When it was finally sedated and moved to a proper medical facility, David stood on shaking legs. Adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him exhausted. Grant met him outside the cargo bay. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I have ever seen, Grant said. Maybe both, David admitted. His communicator chimed. Message received. Docking Bay 7, we are here. David smiled for the first time in hours. Good timing. Docking Bay 7 was crowded with security personnel when David arrived. He pushed through to find Ambassador Holden already there, along with Vreen and several other council delegates. A small transport ship sat in the bay, its airlock cycling open. Lieutenant Sarah Mills emerged first, a compact woman with short dark hair and the confident stride of someone who had spent years in military service. Behind her came James Chen Younger, wearing a vest marked with various certification patches. And beside James, connected by a loose leash, walked Riley. The wolf was beautiful, her gray fur thick and healthy, her amber eyes alert and intelligent. She walked calmly at James's side, completely relaxed despite being in a strange environment surrounded by unfamiliar beings. Her vest clearly marked her as a service animal. The reaction from the alien delegates was immediate. Several backed away. Others made distress sounds. Vreen went completely still, her pale blue skin somehow going even paler. You brought a wolf, Vreen said, her voice shaking with either fear or fury or both. You brought an apex predator to a diplomatic station. I brought a trained therapy animal, David corrected. Riley has certifications from 3 different Earth organizations. She works with trauma patients, anxiety cases, and high-stress negotiations. She is a predator, Vreen insisted. So am I, Sarah said flatly. So is David. So are you, technically, though your species switched to plant-based diet about 8,000 years ago according to your evolutionary record. Being a predator is not the same as being dangerous. James knelt beside Riley and gave her a hand signal. She sat immediately, her tail wagging slightly. Riley was rescued from an illegal breeding operation 5 years ago. She was malnourished, afraid of people, and had never been properly socialized. We rehabilitated her. Now she helps people. Helps people? Murren, the insectoid delegate, clicked forward cautiously. Unlike Vreen, he seemed more curious than afraid. How does a predator help? She provides comfort, James explained. Her presence lowers stress hormones in humans. The act of petting her reduces anxiety. She can sense emotional distress and responds with calming behavior. She has been trained to work with children, veterans with trauma, and diplomats in difficult negotiations. Show us, Murren said suddenly. Vreen turned to stare at him. You cannot be serious. I am entirely serious, Murren replied. If we are to share the galaxy with humans, we should understand this bond they claim exists. Prove it. David looked at James, who nodded. Riley responds to voice commands and hand signals. She knows over 40 different commands. Watch. James put Riley through her paces. Sit. Stay. Down. Heel. Come. The wolf obeyed perfectly, her attention focused entirely on her handler. Then James invited David to give commands. Riley responded just as obediently, showing she could work with multiple handlers. This proves nothing, Vreen said. She obeys humans because you are her pack. You are the same species category. What happens when she encounters prey species? Let me interact with her, Murren said. Absolutely not, Vreen snapped. But Murren was already moving forward, his multiple legs carrying him toward where Riley sat. The wolf watched him approach, her ears forward with interest but no aggression. James stayed close, monitoring. Place your hand near her nose, James instructed. Let her smell you. Do not make sudden movements. Murren extended one of his limbs. Riley sniffed carefully. Then, to everyone's shock, she gently licked the appendage. Her tail wagged. She is greeting you, James explained. In wolf behavior, this is friendly. Murren stood very still. Then carefully he touched Riley's head. The wolf leaned into the contact slightly. Her fur is soft, Murren observed. She is warm. Other delegates were watching with intense focus now. Seeing one of their own safely interacting with a predator was changing the atmosphere in the bay. I want Riley to meet the Miridon, David said. Everyone started talking at once. Vreen's voice cut through. Now you truly have lost your mind. 2 predators together? They will fight. No, David said confidently. They will recognize each other. Both have been hurt. Both have been scared. Animals understand that in ways we often miss. I will allow it, Ambassador Holden said, under controlled conditions with full security present. They moved to the medical facility where the Miridon was being treated. The creature was awake now, sedated enough to be calm but still aware. Its wounds had been cleaned and treated. When the group entered, it raised its head, that scraping sound rumbling in its throat. Riley's ears went forward. James held her leash loosely, letting her approach at her own pace. The wolf moved slowly, cautiously, toward the much larger creature. She stopped several feet away and lowered her head, a submissive gesture. Not aggressive, not challenging. The Miridon watched her. Then it made a different sound, softer than before. Riley took another step closer. She sniffed the air, then very gently she approached the Miridon's side and lay down next to it. She is keeping it warm, David explained quietly. She senses it is injured and cold. This is pack behavior, protecting the wounded. They watched in silence as the Miridon, after several long minutes, shifted its position to rest its head closer to Riley's warm body. The wolf stayed perfectly still, offering comfort to a creature from a completely different world. This is impossible, Vreen whispered. They should be fighting, competing, at minimum ignoring each other. They are both intelligent, David said. They both understand pain and fear. That is enough. Murren moved closer to the observation window. I have watched my people study animal behavior for decades. I have never seen anything like this. Cross-species empathy between predators. Not just between predators, David said. Between any creatures capable of recognizing suffering. That is what humans understand. It is not about danger or safety. It is about connection. Vreen said nothing. For the first time since David had met her, she looked uncertain. Then the alarm started again. The new alarm was different, more urgent. David's communicator exploded with chatter from security channels. Captain Grant's voice cut through the chaos. Multiple breaches. We have a situation in cargo processing. Some kind of smuggling operation, and they just released everything. David ran for the command center with James and Sarah following. Riley trotted beside them, still perfectly calm despite the chaos around her. The command center was pandemonium when they arrived. Every screen showed different sections of the station, different creatures loose and causing havoc. What are we dealing with? Ambassador Holden demanded. A security officer pulled up the cargo manifest. Illegal wildlife shipment. When customs tried to inspect, the smugglers panicked and opened all the containers. We have at least 15 different species loose. Maybe more. The screen showed the nightmare. Pack hunters the size of humans moving through corridors. A serpent-like creature with spines along its back cornering a family. Something that looked like a large cat but moved too fast to properly see. And more. These are not like the Miridon, Grant said grimly. These animals have been starved and abused. They are genuinely dangerous. Evacuate all civilians to secure areas, Vreen ordered. Deploy all security teams with lethal force authorized. That will not work, David said, studying the screens. You saw what happened with one scared creature. Now you have 15 or more, all panicked, all in pain. If you corner them, they will fight. People will die. People will die anyway, Vreen snapped. What would you suggest? David looked at Grant. Let us handle this. Us? Vreen gestured at the small group of humans. You, a soldier and a wolf? Against all of that? We understand predators, Sarah said calmly. We know how they think, how they move, what drives them. Your people see threats. We see frightened animals. Grant was already pulling up tactical displays. If you can really do this, I will support you. But how? James knelt beside Riley, checking her vest. We use Riley to track them. Wolves have incredible sense of smell. She can locate creatures faster than any sensor. Then we use behavioral knowledge to contain them without confrontation. Contain how? Murren asked. We do not fight them, David explained. We redirect them. Use scent markers to guide them. Sound to herd them. Food to lure them. We separate them, handle them individually. No killing unless absolutely necessary. Vreen looked like she wanted to argue, but another alert came through. Casualties reported in the residential sector. She closed her eyes. Do it. But if this fails, I am ordering full military response. The human team moved fast. Grant split station security into support roles following human direction. David, Sarah, and James took point with Riley. Their first target was a pack of lizard-like creatures heading toward the school section. Riley tracked them through 3 decks, her nose to the ground, moving quickly. When they found the pack, David held up a hand. They are hunting together, he observed. Pack mentality, so we give them easier prey. Sarah pulled out synthetic protein packs, the kind used for emergency rations. She scattered them in a trail leading away from the school toward an empty cargo bay. The pack leader, a scarred creature missing part of its tail, caught the scent. It changed direction. The others followed. "Now we seal them in," Grant said, watching from security feeds. He triggered the bay doors remotely. The pack was contained. "One down," James said. 14 to go. They worked through the station systematically. The venomous serpent was harder. It had coiled in a heating vent drawn by the warmth. Riley could not reach it, but she could track its scent. David studied its behavior through cameras. "It is cold," he realized. "Like the Miridon." From a hot world, he had an idea. "Can we superheat the adjacent section and cool this one?" "Environmental controls can do that," Grant confirmed. They made the serpent's current location uncomfortable while creating a warm haven nearby. The creature moved on its own, following heat. They sealed it in a temperature-controlled containment unit. 2 down. The cat-like creature was fast, too fast for normal tracking. But Riley was faster. She herded it like prey, working with Sarah to drive it toward a dead-end corridor. David went in alone with food and patience. 20 minutes later, the creature was contained. 3 down. They worked for hours. Each creature required different tactics. Some responded to food. Others needed gentle herding. One responded to music of all things, calming when James played soft sounds through speakers. The human team adapted to each situation, using knowledge and empathy instead of force. Other species watched in amazement as humans accomplished what their security forces could not. Murren personally assisted, learning quickly and following instructions without question. Finally, only one creature remained. The largest, the most dangerous, the Cravor. It was massive, easily 300 pounds of armor and muscle and rage. Someone had tortured this creature badly. Its hide showed burn marks, old wounds that had healed incorrectly. It was cornered in the central hub, near the command center. Near the delegates, Grant pulled up the feed. "That thing is too damaged. Too dangerous. We have to put it down." David stared at the screen. The Cravor was bleeding from fresh wounds where security had already tried to stop it. Its eyes were wild with pain and fear and fury. "Let me try," David said. "David, no," Ambassador Holden said. "This is different from the Miridon. This creature has been broken. Then it needs help more than the others," David said simply. He walked toward the central hub before anyone could stop him. Riley whined, sensing danger. James held her back. David entered the hub alone. The Cravor saw him and roared, a sound that shook the walls. It charged. David sat down. The Cravor stopped 3 feet away, confused by prey that did not run. David kept his breathing steady as the Cravor circled him. The creature was even larger up close, its multiple eyes tracking every small movement. Scars covered its body, telling stories of pain and cruelty. This was not just a scared animal. This was a traumatized one. "I know," David said softly. "I know what they did to you." The Cravor made a sound like grinding stone, its armored plates shifting as it moved. It could kill David in seconds. Everyone watching knew it. But David did not move. "You are hurt," he continued. "In pain. You have been hurt for a long time. You do not trust anyone. Why would you?" He pulled out his medical scanner slowly, making sure the creature could see every movement. "Look." He held up the scanner, showing his own biosigns on the screen. "These are my readings. Elevated heart rate, stress hormones, fear." He looked at the Cravor. "I am scared too, but I am here anyway." The Cravor stopped circling, its massive head lowered, studying David and the device. "We are both damaged," David said. "Both of us just trying to survive in places that hurt us, but it does not have to be this way." He set the scanner down and extended his hand, palm up. Empty. No weapon. No threat. "Will you let me help?" In the command center, Vreen watched the screens with her hands clenched. "He is going to die. That human fool is going to be killed and prove every point I have made about their recklessness." "Wait," Murren said quietly. "Look." The Cravor was lowering itself to the ground. Not attacking. Sitting. Its eyes never left David, but the aggressive posture was fading. Exhaustion and pain were winning against fear and rage. David moved slowly forward on his knees. "Good, that is good. You are so tired. I can see it." He reached the scanner and carefully extended it toward the creature's side. "This will not hurt. I promise." The Cravor flinched when the scanner touched its hide but did not attack. David ran it over the worst of the wounds, reading data that made his heart ache. Infected lacerations. Broken bones that had healed wrong. Signs of systematic torture over months, maybe years. They hurt you so much, David whispered. I am sorry. I am so sorry. The Cravor made a different sound, softer. One of its eyes closed, then another. The creature was at its limit, body and spirit. Let me help, David said again. Please. Very slowly, incredibly. The Cravor laid its head on the ground in front of David. Submission. Trust. Or maybe just acceptance that it could not fight anymore. David placed his hand on the armored hide. Good, you are good. We will fix this. James and the medical team moved in carefully, bringing sedatives and equipment. David stayed with the Cravor through everything, his hand never leaving the creature. When it finally slept, truly rested for perhaps the first time in years, David stood on shaking legs. The command center was silent. Every delegate had watched. Every species had seen a human sit before an apex predator and offer compassion instead of weapons. Vreen approached David later, after all the creatures had been contained and treated. He was in the medical facility checking on the Cravor. The creature would need months of surgery and rehabilitation, but it would survive. I was wrong, Vreen said. David turned to look at her. Yes, you were. I do not understand it, Vreen continued. How you can love things that could kill you. How you can see pain in creatures that should be your enemies. They are not our enemies, David said. They are just different. And yes, they are dangerous. But so is walking outside. So is flying between stars. So is trusting someone new. Everything worth doing has risk. Your species is insane, Vreen said, but there was no heat in it now. Maybe. David smiled. But we are alive. Really, truly alive. In the following weeks, the station changed. The council officially requested human advisors for xenobiology and security. Multiple species wanted to learn human methods for handling dangerous creatures. The smuggling ring was broken, and dozens of illegally transported animals were recovered and rehabilitated. Riley became a fixture on the station, her calm presence helping delegates who had never understood the human-animal bond begin to see its value. The Miridon recovered fully and showed remarkable attachment to David, following him when allowed. Plans were made to return it to a proper facility, but the creature clearly did not want to leave. The Cravor required extensive treatment, but under David's care, it slowly began to trust again. James worked with it daily, using the same techniques that had rehabilitated Riley. Progress was slow but steady. 3 months after the crisis, David gave a presentation to the full council about human-animal relationships. The hall was packed. Vreen sat in the front row. Riley lay beside the podium, relaxed and content. We bond with predators not despite their danger, but because we recognize ourselves in them, David explained. Humans are predators too. We evolved to hunt, to kill when necessary, but we also evolved to love, to protect, to form connections across impossible boundaries. That is not weakness. That is what makes us human. He looked across the faces of dozens of species, some still skeptical, some curious, some beginning to understand. You asked why we love dangerous things. The answer is simple. Because love itself is dangerous. Trust is dangerous. Connection is dangerous. But without those things, what are we? Just isolated beings moving through space, afraid of everything different from ourselves. Riley stood and moved to David's side. He rested his hand on her head. We choose to love predators because we choose to live fully, to embrace risk for the reward of connection. That is the human way, and we think the galaxy is better for it. The council chambers remained quiet for a moment. Then Murren stood and began the clicking sound that his species used for approval. Others joined, each in their own way. Not everyone agreed. Some never would. But the conversation had changed. Back in his quarters that night, David video called home. Cooper's face filled the screen, and Mittens walked across the keyboard. He smiled, missing them terribly. I think I made a difference, he told his sister. I think they are starting to understand. Outside his window, the Cravor rested in its medical habitat, finally peaceful. Riley slept on his couch. The Miridon was being prepared for transport to a facility where it would be studied and protected. They had called it madness, loving predators. But David knew the truth. The most dangerous thing in the galaxy was not the creature with claws and teeth. It was the one without empathy, and humanity had empathy to spare.